It was a quiet afternoon when the millionaire walked into the cafe, holding his little daughter's hand. To the world, he was the most powerful man in the city, but inside, he was broken. His only child had never spoken a single word since birth. Doctors, specialists, even the most expensive treatments, all had failed. The little girl's silence had become his deepest wound. As they sat down, the child stared at her plate, lost in her own world. Suddenly, a young black waitress approached. She didn't speak. Instead, she raised her hands and began to use sign language. For the first time, the girl's eyes lit up. Her tiny fingers moved hesitantly, copying the gestures. The millionaire froze, his heart pounding. He had spent millions searching for hope. But in this simple cafe, something unbelievable was happening. And in that very moment, the impossible occurred. For the first time in her life, his daughter spoke. Jonathan Reed was the kind of man everyone envied. Owner of luxury hotels, private jets, and a fortune so vast that newspapers called him the Golden Touch. Yet, none of that mattered when he looked at his daughter, Emily. She was only 8, with the gentlest smile, but her lips had never spoken a single word. Born mute, she had become the silent center of his world. Doctors across continents, specialists with golden reputations. Jonathan had spent millions hoping for a miracle, but every time he heard the same cruel sentence. She will never talk. Accept it. And so, the powerful millionaire who could bend entire markets to his will could not change the fate of his own child. That helplessness had turned him bitter, closed off, and often arrogant to those around him. This particular afternoon, Jonathan decided to take Emily out for lunch. They entered a cozy cafe on the corner of the city, a place far beneath the circles he normally frequented. Emily walked quietly beside him, her small hand holding onto his sleeve, her eyes always lowered, afraid of the world that had never understood her silence. They sat by the window. Emily tapped her fingers nervously on the table, something she always did when anxious. Jonathan ordered their food mechanically, his mind elsewhere. Across from him sat Victoria, his glamorous girlfriend, always dressed in the latest designer outfits, her perfume filling the air before she even spoke. She had been with Jonathan for nearly a year, but she never truly connected with Emily. To her, the little girl was an obstacle, a reminder that Jonathan's heart had scars she could never heal. As the waiter left, a new face appeared, a waitress with warm, kind eyes, wearing the cafe's simple uniform. Her name tag read Maya. She carried herself differently from the others, with a quiet dignity. Maya smiled at Emily, a genuine smile that reached her eyes. For a brief moment, Emily's restless fingers stopped tapping. "Don't waste your time," Victoria interrupted sharply, rolling her eyes at the waitress. "She doesn't talk. She can't. Just serve the food and go." Jonathan clenched his jaw at the blunt cruelty, but he said nothing. He had heard it before, not just from Victoria, but from the world, from doctors in white coats, from teachers who gave up, from strangers whispering in pity. She'll never talk. Accept it. But Maya didn't move away. Instead, she crouched slightly to Emily's level. She didn't say a word. Instead, she raised her hand slowly and began forming shapes in the air. Emily's wide eyes followed every movement. Her lips parted slightly, her body leaning forward as if a secret language had finally reached her. The waitress signed again, gentle and patient, her hands painting silent words only Emily could understand. Jonathan's heart skipped a beat. He had seen those gestures before, in the corner of a clinic where specialists practiced with other children. Sign language. But no one had ever tried it with Emily for real. Not like this. Not with patience. Not with kindness. Victoria scoffed. "This is ridiculous. She's not going to understand." "Honestly, Jonathan, why are we sitting in a place like this? Surrounded by nobodies pretending they can fix what doctors couldn't." Jonathan ignored her. His eyes were locked on Emily. The little girl's fingers trembled. Then, slowly, she lifted her own hands and copied the gesture. Maya's face lit up with encouragement. Emily blinked rapidly, her chest rising and falling as though she had just discovered an entirely new world. Jonathan's throat tightened. He remembered the hospital corridors, the endless consultations, the cruel, pitying glances. He remembered holding Emily's tiny hand when she was only 3, the doctor's voice echoing, "She'll never speak. You must accept reality." But right here, in a small cafe on an ordinary afternoon, his daughter's silence was breaking. Maya, the waitress, didn't flinch at Victoria's harsh words. She had heard that tone before. People dismissing her, dismissing others, believing kindness was weakness. Instead of leaving, she leaned closer to Emily with a gentle smile, her hands moving slowly and clearly in the soft rhythm of sign language. Emily froze for a second, her big brown eyes widening. Then something incredible happened. Her restless fingers stopped tapping the table. She tilted her head slightly, her lips parting as if her silent world had suddenly been cracked open. For the first time in her young life, someone wasn't just staring at her with pity or frustration. Someone was speaking to her, in her language. Jonathan watched in disbelief. He had seen these gestures before. In clinics he'd taken Emily to, but never like this. Those were sterile rooms filled with machines and doctors who treated his daughter like a lost case. But here, in the middle of an ordinary cafe, a simple waitress was communicating with her as if it were the most natural thing in the world. Emily's tiny hands trembled. Slowly, almost shyly, she lifted them and copied Maya's gesture. The moment was so fragile, it felt like the entire room had stopped breathing. Victoria let out a mocking laugh, breaking the silence. "This is embarrassing. She's just making random shapes. Jonathan, tell her to stop. People are watching." She looked around the cafe angrily, noticing customers glancing their way. But Jonathan didn't hear her. His eyes were fixed on Emily, his heart pounding harder with every small movement of her hands. He remembered nights pacing the hospital corridors, begging specialists from around the world. He remembered their polished voices saying, "Mr. Reed, you must accept the truth. She will never speak." He remembered paying millions for treatments, for equipment, for therapies that all ended with the same cold verdict. Hopeless. Yet here was his daughter, smiling. Emily's lips curved upwards, her eyes sparkling like he had never seen before. She copied Maya's hand movements again, then leaned forward eagerly, almost giggling without sound. It was as if a wall had finally cracked, letting in light for the first time. Victoria hissed louder now, her voice dripping with anger. "Jonathan, she looks ridiculous. You're humiliating yourself by letting this woman play games. Your daughter isn't talking. She never will." Jonathan clenched his fists under the table. For years, he had shielded himself behind arrogance and power, telling himself that if science couldn't fix it, then nothing could. But right now, he saw hope blooming in his daughter's face. Hope he hadn't seen in 8 long years. Maya gently signed again. "Friend, hello." And then it happened. Emily leaned forward, her little hands moving to mimic the word. But as she did, a sound escaped her throat. Faint, fragile, but unmistakable. "Ha!" The cafe went completely silent. Jonathan's breath caught in his chest, his entire body frozen. He stared at his daughter, unable to believe what he'd just heard. A sound, a word, her voice. Emily blinked in shock at herself, then tried again. "Ha!" Jonathan's eyes flooded with tears. His hand shook as he reached across the table, barely whispering. "Emily, my God, you spoke." Victoria stood up so quickly her chair screeched against the floor. "This is absurd. It's just a noise. Stop fooling yourself." Her voice was sharp, filled with fury, but nobody in the cafe seemed to agree. Every eye was on Emily, the little girl whose lips had never moved, until now. Jonathan couldn't look away. He had spent fortunes searching for this one miracle, and it had just happened right before him, because of a waitress society would have dismissed as nobody. He covered his mouth with his hand, his shoulders shaking as the tears finally fell. For the first time in years, they were not tears of despair, but of hope. Maya, still calm, gave Emily a small nod of encouragement, her hands moving again in gentle signs. Emily laughed, a tiny, breathless laugh, and once again tried to repeat. This time, the sound was clearer. "Hell!" Jonathan wiped his tears quickly, still trembling from the sound of Emily's fragile voice. He turned to the waitress, his voice breaking. How do you know this? How did you reach her? Maya smiled softly, her hand still resting gently on the table. It's not magic, sir. It's just patience and love. I had a younger brother. He was born deaf. Doctors said he'd never live a normal life, but my mother and I refused to give up. I learned sign language for him, so he would never feel alone in silence. For years, it was our secret world. Jonathan listened closely, his chest tightening. He could almost see it, a little boy and his sister communicating in signs, building their own bridge of love. Maya's eyes glistened as she continued. He passed away when he was 10. A car accident. Since then, whenever I meet a child who struggles with silence, I remember him. I can't bring him back, but I can bring his gift to someone else. For a long moment, the cafe was silent, except for Emily's small laugh as she copied another gesture. Jonathan's hand trembled on the table. In Maya's story, he heard his own pain echoed back. Loss, regret, love. Victoria suddenly scoffed loudly, snapping everyone out of the moment. Are you serious, Jonathan? You're going to believe this waitress's sob story? She's not a doctor. She's not a therapist. She's just here to serve coffee. Don't embarrass yourself. Maya looked down, embarrassed, but Emily suddenly reached across the table. Her tiny hand, fragile and shaking, wrapped around Maya's fingers. She held on tightly. The first time she had ever held on to a stranger like that. Her eyes shone with trust, as if she had finally found someone who understood her world. Jonathan's breath caught. He had never seen his daughter touch anyone like that. Not nurses, not teachers, not even most of his relatives. But with Maya, it was different. It was connection. Around them, murmurs spread through the cafe. Customers had stopped eating. Some whispered in disbelief. Others smiled softly. A few even lifted their phones, recording the moment. Is that the Reed girl? One woman whispered. She's speaking. I heard her, another said. No, she's never spoken before. Look at that waitress. She's communicating with her. Jonathan felt eyes on him from every direction, but for once, he didn't care. All he could see was Emily's smile. For years, his fortune had bought silence and cold verdicts. But now, for the first time, his little girl was laughing. Victoria slammed her hand on the table. Jonathan, this is humiliating. People are staring, filming us. Do you know what this will do to your reputation? Jonathan finally looked at her, his jaw tight. Do you know what this means to me? To her. His voice trembled with a mixture of rage and awe. She just made her first sound in 8 years. And you're worried about reputation? Victoria's face twisted with disdain. She's just a waitress. You're being played like a fool. If doctors failed, do you really think this nobody can succeed? Emily whimpered softly at the harsh tone. Instinctively, she squeezed Maya's hand tighter, pulling her closer. Maya gently stroked the little girl's hand in return, calming her without saying a word. The contrast was undeniable. One woman radiating cruelty, the other radiating kindness. Jonathan's heart felt like it was being torn in two. On one side stood Victoria, the glamorous partner who fit perfectly into his elite world of wealth and status. On the other sat Maya, a stranger in a cafe uniform, who had just given him what no amount of money could buy: hope. And in between them was Emily, clinging desperately to the only person who had ever truly understood her silence. Jonathan leaned back in his chair, his mind spinning. Cameras were still pointed at them. His daughter was smiling. Victoria was fuming. And for the first time in years, he realized he was standing at a crossroads. Not of business, not wealth, but of love, compassion, the very future of his child. His eyes fell on Emily's glowing face as she repeated another small sound, almost a whisper, while Maya encouraged her gently. Jonathan's chest ached as tears blurred his vision again. In that moment, he knew one truth. He could no longer ignore what his heart was screaming. Emily's little fingers were still wrapped tightly around Maya's hand, her lips trembling as though searching for courage. Maya leaned close, her voice gentle, her signs deliberate. You can do it. Just try. The cafe had gone completely silent. Every eye locked on the fragile girl. Jonathan leaned forward, his heart hammering in his chest. He could barely breathe. Then, with a small gasp, Emily looked at her father. Her lips moved, and for the first time in her life, a clear word escaped. "Daddy." The sound was soft, broken, but it was real. The cafe froze. Forks clattered onto plates. People covered their mouths in shock. A woman in the corner sobbed quietly. Someone whispered, "She spoke. She really spoke." Phones trembled in hands as customers recorded the unbelievable moment. Jonathan's entire world shattered. His body shook violently as tears streamed down his face. He covered his mouth with both hands, choking on sobs. For years, he had dreamed of this single word, prayed for it, begged doctors for it. And now, it had finally come, not from science, not from money, but from kindness. "My daddy," Emily whispered again, louder this time, her eyes never leaving his. Jonathan broke. He stood, rushed her aside, and pulled her into his arms. He sobbed openly, his shoulders trembling. His suit crumpled as he held her like he would never let go. "Emily, my little girl, you did it. You spoke. I heard you." But Victoria's face twisted in fury. She shoved her chair back violently, drawing attention. "This is ridiculous. It's humiliating. You've lost your mind, Jonathan. Crying in public like this. Clinging to false hope from a waitress." Her voice dripped venom. "Do you know what this will do to your name? To your reputation?" But Jonathan didn't even look at her. He was lost in the miracle unfolding in his arms. Emily clung to him, her small voice repeating the word again and again. Daddy. Each time stronger, each time breaking his heart wide open with joy. Victoria snapped, her voice rising. "Fine, if you'd rather throw away your dignity for this circus. Then I'm done. You'll regret this, Jonathan. Both of you will regret this." She grabbed her expensive purse and stormed out of the cafe, her heels clicking like thunder as the door slammed behind her. The room remained hushed, but not because of her tantrum. All eyes stayed on Jonathan and Emily. In that moment, it wasn't a millionaire sitting in the cafe. It was just a father, weeping with gratitude as his child spoke his name for the first time. Maya knelt beside them, gently brushing Emily's hair back and signing words of encouragement. The little girl smiled through her tears, resting her head against her father's chest. Jonathan looked up at Maya, with eyes full of awe. His voice cracked. "All the money in the world, and I couldn't give her this. But you gave me my daughter's voice." And in that instant, Jonathan understood what he had forgotten long ago. True miracles don't come from wealth or power. They come from compassion, from love, from people like Maya, who give without expecting anything in return. Jonathan wiped his tears but still held Emily close, as if afraid the moment would disappear. The cafe had returned to a low murmur, but people still stared in awe, phones capturing what they all knew was history. A mute girl, speaking for the first time. He turned to Maya, his voice trembling but firm. "I don't know how to thank you. You've given me what no doctor, no amount of money could. From this moment on, I don't want you to be just a waitress. I want you to be Emily's teacher, her caretaker, her guide. Will you accept?" Maya's eyes widened, tears forming. She glanced at Emily, who was still clutching her hand, whispering the word "daddy" again and again, as if afraid she might forget how. Maya nodded slowly. "If she wants me here, then yes, I'd be honored." Jonathan exhaled shakily, relief and joy flooding his chest. For the first time in years, he felt alive, not as a millionaire, not as a businessman, but as a father who had finally been given hope. Within hours, the short clips recorded by cafe customers spread online. Headlines called it the Miracle in Cafe. The video of Emily saying "Daddy" went viral, millions watching as a simple waitress broke through where science had failed. People around the world wept, shared, and commented, "This proves kindness changes lives. Money can't buy what love can give." Jonathan didn't care about the fame, though. All he cared about was that his daughter was laughing again, speaking again, finally free from the prison of silence. And all because one woman refused to see limits where everyone else did. As the scene closed, Jonathan looked at Maya and whispered with gratitude. Sometimes the greatest miracles don't come from wealth or science, but from compassion and understanding. Sparkle's narrator's closing line, CTA. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe for more stories where kindness always wins over prejudice.